Cool. I'm just starting the recording now, mainly because you're always very interesting, Rob. But just so I don't forget to do it later.
Yep.
This is kind of on topic, but when I was a kid, we used to have this plate on the wall that had it was a commemorative plate for the opening of this Sydney Opera House.
Oh, okay.
And almost every time we would walk under that plate, Dad would go, "It's going to be worth something someday, son."
Yes.
Don't know whether it is, but it's in Mum's garage at the moment, so maybe I should.
You should get it out of the garage and look after it a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's in great condition still.
And you could send some images of it to the Powerhouse Museum, and they'll actually give you a bit of detail about it.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Or the State Library of New South Wales as well.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
That's so cool. Other things that may or may not be worth something. We found when I was a kid, I was digging around in the garden and I found a bayonet that they used to fix with bolts to the end of rifles.
Yeah.
And Dad donated that to the local small arms factory in Lithgow as part of their permanent display. So
I sold a spoon from there last week.
From the small...
a memory, just a souvenir spoon from the Lithgow small arms factory.
Really now?
For $10.
That's amazing. $10. I don't know what a spoon's worth, but that feels like...
Well, that one was $10.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's very interesting. I like to consider myself the unelected mayor of Lithgow. I like to kind of take the gospel of how great Lithgow is to the masses whenever I can. It's fair to say, Rob, a few other people are doing that job. So
yes.
It's good that I have taken that up.
Rob, which graveyard are you?
It's the local one, Nick. I've had a shit day, so I thought I'd signify it with an equally dead image.
I'm sorry to hear that,
yes.
But it does seem like it's a fitting. Really shit day. It'll only get worse if zombies start to appear from them.
Yes. Yes. Did you get my recipes, Nick?
I did, thank you, mate. Wasn't going to bring it up. Yeah, thank you. That's an exciting list of preserve right there. They came through a strange way though. Did you texted them to me? Is that
Sorry?
Right? They came through in a kind of weird way.
I took pictures and then sent them.
Yeah, but they came to my inbox. It was very odd. Anyway, that's all good.
Oh, you know why? Because I don't think I've got your phone number on text. I think it goes to your email.
That would be why. That explains everything.
Sorry.
Oh.
No, that's okay. I'll send you my number so you can text me. It's good.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Excellent. And you can see me okay?
Yep.
Good. I can see you all okay. It's just important to check these things.
Yep. Now, are we waiting on anyone?
We have 10 people on the call, so I think that's pretty close to a quorum. What do you think? Should we get started?
Yeah, let's crack on.
Okay, great. Awesome. Now everybody's obviously muted themselves there because everyone's gone quiet. But do let me know. I have had some trouble with this setup in the most recent times, so please let me know if you do stop, if you're unable to hear me at any point in time. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all gathered today, or certainly where I am gathered today. That is Gadigal and Wongal. The Gadigal and Wongal people of the Aurora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello, all, welcome back. I'm back in my usual setting, which I'm thrilled about, and hopefully it's all working, but I hope you guys have had a wonderful couple of weeks. Last session, we looked at Project Kookaburra, which is an Australian local news experiment. You should have received the videos on email by now, and also interviews with each of the pilot sites so that you can kind of dig into that in a little bit more detail. There was also the 1 to 2 page explainers on each, which basically recaps the goals and outcomes of all of those projects, and also the key lessons that were learned. Are there any questions on any of that stuff, or any questions in general before we get into today's session? Dumb silence, beautiful. That's what we want. Okay, so this session will cover a recap of each workshop so far, and we've split it into 4 key areas. Those areas are global and local trends. So we're going to go back through all that marvelous data that we saw at the very beginning. We're also going to look at audience, productivity and leadership, and finally, the all-important revenue. We'll also do a quick quiz in Meet at the end of each block. It's anonymous, so please have a go. And we'll also have a group discussion about the one thing that you found most interesting. We're looking for the one thing that transformed the way that you think or reframed a challenge that you've needed to overcome. We'll do a bit of a whip around the room, so make sure you jot something down. Finally, we'll look to the final 2 sessions where you'll get a peek under the hood of what's happening at Google. We'll look at culture and also Google's approach to innovation. Google rarely, if ever, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, talks about this stuff publicly. So we're absolutely thrilled to be able to pass this knowledge and this experience on to you guys. So let's get back into it with some global and local trends. So way back in February, precisely 10 years ago, we dove into the trends affecting news around the world. We also looked at a few key pieces of research conducted here in Australia that include important lessons for local news. So let's recap. So according to the Reuters Digital News Report, who partnered with University of Canberra for the Australia report, 76% of Australians get most of their news from online. 76%. So just a reminder, this report surveyed 80,000 people over 40 countries. That's a fair bit of rigor. If you break that number down further, 60% of this group is accessing news on their mobile phone. So what's the lesson for us? So we need to create news that is not just digital first, but is also a great experience on mobile. Moving on to my favorite statistic, I guess, from the entire report, getting it in, local and 4th overall for trust, just behind the ABC, BBC and SBS. Now, you'll remember that trust in news dropped over the past 12 months, both locally and globally. The number of people who said that they do not trust the news at all also rose over that period. That fall is bigger among people who rely mainly on traditional news compared to those who rely mainly on online news. So the takeout for you is that when you consider that trust in news is greatly challenged, you're bucking the trend in a race to credibility. You also have a distinct advantage over everybody else. I'm going to talk a little bit about that advantage a bit later on. Social media is still absolutely crucial for news, with Facebook the clear leader. 71% of Australians are on Facebook, with 39% using it for news. So 71% of Australians are on Facebook, 39% are using it for news. When you consider that there are 23 million Australians and 89% are connected to the internet of varying qualities. Nick, do you have a question?
It was actually a suggestion. Did you want to, you've got some slides, I think, to present alongside, and I wondered whether or not you wanted to show them.
I would love to. Let's just do that. Sorry, mate. Thank you for jumping in there. I thought I was reasonably well organised today, but as always, Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, team. Nick, thanks for pointing that out. So you guys should be seeing something on the screen right now. Hopefully, it's a couple of bullet points. Can you guys all see those? Nick, could you just jump in and let me know if you're seeing that correctly?
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, thanks,
I can
guys.
see it too.
Awesome. There we go. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so you haven't missed too much. It's just basically a bunch of bullet points on the screen, so so you're okay. But yeah, so getting back to this, so the report surveyed 80,000 people, as I mentioned, from over 40 countries. So there is a bit of rigor to that. But yeah, I've lost where I'm at. That's okay. Look, we're good. Oh, the final stat that I forgot to mention is that that despite what you see on your newsfeed, majority of Australians also prefer news that has no point of view. And I found, look, I got a great deal of heart, I think, from seeing that stat. So now, before we move into our first quiz, and again, anything could happen in this quiz. This is the first time I've used this very new featuring in Google Meet, but we will give it a crack and see how it goes. So before we move into that, I just want to remind you guys of three important numbers. The first one is 14%, which is the willingness to pay for online news. That's the local figure from the Reuters report. Here's another number, 28. That's the percentage of people who are willing to pay for local news, also at that local level. And here's another figure, 59%. And that's the number of people that are willing to pay for online news when they've bought online content in the past. So for that one, just think that they purchased a movie on iTunes Store, or they've subscribed to a streaming service. Their willingness to pay for online news rises from 28% all the way up to over 50% to 59%. So that's probably enough numbers for one night. So inside Google Meet, hopefully now you are going to see a poll that is live. I'm going to release 3 polls now, and we'll give you about 2 or 3 minutes just to get these done. So we'll finish at about 1/4 the hour on these. The first one that you should be seeing now is what percentage of Australians are connected to the internet. The first option there is 76%. The second option is 83%. The next option is 89%. And the final option is 100%.
Sorry, Neil, do you know if I can do this on my phone? Because it's just sort of, it's not coming up.
I am not sure, unless you've got, maybe if you've got the Google, Nick might be able to answer that one, but if you've got the Google Meet app, I'm sure it might work, but Nick might be able to answer that. Do you know, Nick?
I've got the app, but I'm in the Google Meet app, and it just, the quiz comes up.
I would,
there's nothing actually on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got that too. I can see the quiz, but nothing.
On mobile. Is that on mobile? Sorry.
On a laptop. Yeah.
On the laptop, you can't see.
On the
You can't see.
Yeah, on the laptop, we haven't got the actual multiple choice questions or.
Yeah.
Mine
Says
took a little
quiz.
bit to load, but it's popped up.
Oh, okay.
So if you go
Can
to
you-
and do you get the breakout rooms and polls and Q&A and recording, or no, not recordings, maybe an internal thing. What do you get when you see activities?
Surely there's just a quiz and there's nothing else coming up. Just the colours and the lines going everywhere, but the actual words and content aspect is not there.
Yeah. Same.
Same for me on the iPad.
I've seen 4 votes come through now, so some people are obviously able to access it and others may not. Maybe just, if you can, just just jot down the answer that you think is the correct one, just on a piece of paper, or even if you're at the laptop, just punch that into a document or something, and we'll keep rolling. But that way you can still
Sorry.
contribute.
Sorry, Neil, do you mind saying again what the options were?
So the option, yeah, sorry. Okay, so the options, the first question are, what percentage of Australians, the question is, what percentage of Australians are connected to the internet? The first option is 76%. The next option is 83%. The third option is 89%. And the final option is 100%. Okay, now we're going to end that one. We got, this is already going great, isn't it, Nick? I'm just going to read out the votes just so that we're not here all night. I'll just read out the votes from the online poll. So we have 2 votes for 89%, which is the highest. We have 1 vote for 83%, and then also 1 vote for 76%. And the answer is 89%. So, we did get that one. So 89%, sorry, is the percentage of Australians that have access to the internet. There we go. All right, launching the next one, which has a typo in it. But the question is, what percentage of people are willing to pay for local news online? The options are 28%. Hang on. Sorry, guys. I'm going to skip forward one. So what percentage of people are willing to pay for local news if they paid for online content in the past? So this is the one we literally just did. What percentage of people are willing to pay for local news if they've paid for online content in the past? The options are 28%. The second option is 59%. The third option is 86%. So that's the willingness to pay for local news if they paid for online content in the past. And the final option is 100%. So just to recap that, because I totally mucked it up, what percentage of people are willing to pay for local news if they've paid for online content in the past? The options are 28%, 59%, 86%, and 100%.
And if anyone isn't able to vote, feel free to call out what you think it might be. There's no shame in getting it wrong. I'm pretty sure I got this one wrong.
So 59.
Yeah, I think 59 too.
Beautiful. Well, that's 5 votes for 59. We've got 1 vote for 28.
That was me.
We've got 0. we've got 0 votes for 86 and 0 votes for 100%. So the answer to that one is 59%. So well done, everybody, except for Nick.
I'll get my card.
There you go. All right. We've got one more question here, which I'm just going to launch now. The question is, I feel like Eddie Maguire. The question is, what percentage of people are willing to pay for local news? So this is a step back from those that have paid for online content in the past. What percentage of people are willing to pay for local news? First answer could be 12%. The next option is 28%. The third option is 30%. 30%. And the final option is 76%. I'll give you guys about 10 seconds more.
76.
Oh, okay,
20,
there we go.
I think I had 28.
28.
I had 28. 28. Two 28s and a 76. Nick Hopkins, what do
Well, I think 28, but I voted. Look, it was a slip of the mouse. I clicked on 12, but you can't undo it. I found out. So I'm in the 28. Even though I voted for 12, just like pretend I didn't do that.
Okay, excellent. Well, we've got zero votes.
Unless
Zero votes.
I did vote for 12%.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, look, we've got 0 votes for 12% then, if that's the case. We have 4 votes for 28%. We have 0 votes for 30%, and we have 1 vote for 76%. The answer is 28% is the percentage of people that are willing to pay for local news online. 28%.
I feel like I'm on a quiz show and I just didn't listen to the question properly.
There you go.
You're making
Or
me
maybe
nervous, Neil.
look, I'm nervous. There's a lot going on over here. I've got screens everywhere. What's going on?
What are the prizes, guys? Was it big cash prizes or not?
Well, look, yeah, everybody gets to come to Sydney is the prize.
Oh, cool.
Nick, I also just recently got the larger Google News Initiative stickers as well. So there we go. We might even be able to throw in a laptop sticker as well.
So I know that I've said this, gone on about this before, but a figure of 28% of people who are willing to pay for local news online is a phenomenal proportion of audiences who are willing to pay for local news. I mean, I just think from a standing start, that's a huge number. And I think the other one was 59, wasn't it? So if you've already bought something online, it's incredible. It's just, as somebody who paid, I mean, I've been going about this before as well. We launched a paywall. Our proportion of audiences willing to pay on news when we were launching the paywall a long time ago was far lower than that. Like, I just sort of think it is reinforcing of the opportunity there. It's not easy, but it's just it's a very strong indicator of the opportunity. Anyway, as you were.
Did you, Nick? No, not at all. Did you say at the time as well that the goal was 4% for you guys? Was it 4%?
10% was our goal.
It was 10%. Okay, there you go.
Well, we expected to lose 90% of our audience, and that we would get 10% of our of the remaining audience would be subscribers, and it was a very different outcome. But we never had any indication that more than 1 in 4 people would be willing to just straight up subscribe. Like, that would have been a hugely encouraging number if we'd been at that point. No, it's a very encouraging number to have in our back pocket.
It's an extraordinary figure, and when you think that most households, I imagine these days, would have a streaming service or have bought something on Apple TV or Google Play or something like that. It is a mind-blowing figure when it rises to that 59%.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you for bearing with me with that. Let's shift our gaze slightly to our audience work. Again, sort of at the beginning of things, so it's great to go back over this stuff. In this session, we looked at how to create an audience-led strategy. The key to this is really just putting the audience at the center of everything that you do. It also, importantly, and we looked at some of this stuff last week with the Kookaburra case studies, it's really important that you also set goals and that you're constantly reviewing them as well. So let's look at the key takeaways now. So as I mentioned, the audience is absolutely, the key to audience strategy is putting the audience at the center of everything that you do. So whether you're commissioning stories, ask yourself, is this useful to them? Will this make their lives better? If you've built the story, it's worth thinking about, is it made for the web? Is it a pleasant experience? Does it view well on mobile? Often we'll build stories and we won't even check that stuff. So really important that you're kind of always thinking about the audience as you're moving through those steps. Next thing, like, where do they want to consume it? So is it Facebook? Is it email? Do you need to send them a push notification on mobile? How much do they want to pay? Do you know? Do you know the answer to that question? Have you asked them? And how often do you ask them about what they want and also how you're going? We also talked about the role of web analytics as well, diving inside the GA dashboard. If you're not using Google Analytics, all the same rules apply on any good analytics platform. Generally, they measure things in much the same way. But just kind of going back over that, the role of analytics is to help us understand our audience and their needs. That's basically it. Just simple as that. And the role of all that data is just so that we can serve them better. That's the key to it all. The better that we serve them, the more sustainable our businesses will be. And that is certainly where we want to be. We also looked at a number of free tools in this session as well. All of these Google tools that I showed you guys that basically allow you to measure your audience, including those 3 tools that help you with capturing and reading data. For those taking notes for the quiz, those tools are News Consumer Insights, Real-Time Content Insights, and also the News Tagging Guide, which is the new one of the 3. Now, before we get into the next quiz, is anybody doing anything different off the back of that session? Was that session, did that unlock something for you guys? Is there anything that you're doing differently as a result of having gone through that audience session? Love to hear it.
We're probably doing the analytics stuff. We're probably using a bit more of now, Neil, and probably we've got, just in terms of our the program that we're using, Google Analytics is there, but we've got our own analytics that goes through the program for the Teams program that we're using back through IAP to set the stuff up for us. So we're sort of, I suppose we're using that fairly regularly, daily sort of basis now, trying to pick up on some trends. So that's been quite helpful to see, again, get an understanding of the Google Analytics and trying to transpose that into what we've also got access to with our generic analytics tool, I suppose. And it's yeah, look, we've I suppose it's reasserting some of our gut feelings about what we think the public's interested in with our key stories, or what we think would be our key stories, and are getting our most traffic. It's also turned up some surprising results at times too, just with some of the sports stories that we know get good mileage, but just the number of people that we're getting consistent mileage out of, that's been interesting as well. So, and to a degree where, the whole part of our analytics aspect was looking at seeing if there's more stories, additional stories or content we can build around some of those things that are really grabbing the reader's attention or the audience attention. So still very early days for us in that respect, but we've made a bit more of a jump using that analytics and using it day to day just with our assessments. So that's been interesting.
That's awesome. So good to hear. I'm sort of interested. So what are you seeing are you seeing any differences between the insights that you're getting from your own analytics platform versus what you're seeing in GA?
Yeah, well, probably the big difference, I mean, we don't, in terms of the GA stuff, probably with some of the trends, some of the trafficable amount of traffic that you need to get before you get some of that trends. We notice it with Google. We've probably got it. We don't have always the volume that we actually get some of those trends back. Like I think in terms of when it's real time, you've got to have a certain number of people actually on the website, using it at a particular time. So sometimes the level of activity may be fairly minute, so we don't pick up the same. We don't get the same detail, I suppose. But they've all been fairly. I suppose there hasn't been any dramatic differences between the Google Analytics and the generic stuff that we've got with our own program. In terms of trends, anyway, they seem to be sort of duplicating. So. Yeah, we're probably, as I said, we're probably using the generic a bit more than what we are at Google at the moment. So,
awesome. Does anybody have anything to add to that, or any questions on any of that?
Can I ask Jeff, what were the pullouts from the sports stuff that you found, Jeff, or what was the most unique thing that you found when you looked at the analytics around the sport area?
I think just how solid all the sport content was. I think, Rob. I mean, not just the main footy stories, our league footy stories, but also our netball and some of the other lesser sports that we think lesser about. But they had good uptake, good readership. So again, what's interesting for us with the analytics is that we're still not digital first, and when we've got the websites and the likes, the bulk of our readership is still print. So for us coming into the digital age and doing more of this, we're still circumspect in terms of that it represents a percentage of our readership, but it's not. Again, it might be 5-10% sort of thing. So it's not not a sheer volume. So it gives us a bit of a roadmap, I suppose, in terms of where we might look to try and develop some of that content and develop some of that digital audience. But yeah, it was surprising just in terms of some of the extent of sport, just the number of stories that had a good uptake, a good readership. We knew that our back page stories, and which are usually generally your main football sort of league stories, and that they'd have a reasonable hit. But some of the lesser sort of stories, or where their placement is within the paper, they got good readership as well.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, mate. That's so good to hear, and I think it's often it's so. I find the analytics is the once you get your head around it, it's like a massive breakthrough. And as you were sort of mentioning, some of it is backing up, a lot of it is kind of backing up what your gut has been telling you for a long time. And the way I think about it's not to undervalue the gut. I mean, the gut is basically built on data too. It's understanding what stories have been working and the kinds of content that's been working for you over time. So it's just another way of doing that. So it's so good to hear.
If I can just chime in though, I mean, and I couldn't agree more with that, Neil. I think we tend to forget that analytics ultimately is just kind of it's data, and it's you can look at a trend and you can get a sense of what the trend is telling you. If I can put a little plug in for the news consumer insights and real-time content insights, the reason for that is that I remember when I was running a newsroom and in charge of traffic, and I have no data analytics background at all, and was just never felt more exposed when I was being asked about what was going on with our traffic, because you can see what's happening on a chart, but it doesn't really tell you what's going on in terms of what audiences are doing or how they're engaging or why they're engaging. You can draw some assumptions, and you can draw you can sort of try to track some trends. But those tools, and I'm probably going to sound biased, but like if we had access to those tools that really start to help you identify, they're like a data analyst in your back pocket. They do pretty simple things, but the level of quality that you get versus what from a tool like that versus what you're ending up having to sort of extrapolate on your own is so much better. And they've won a ton of international awards simply because they make that job of trying to interpret that data for you so much easier. So if you haven't yet plugged it in and really started to sort of make use of it, please do. If you have Google Analytics, it's incredibly worthwhile.
Thank you, mate. Now we're going to have a quick quiz. So I'm going to launch these again. So there is one live right now. The question is, what is the key to audience strategy? The options are making the audience central to everything that you do. The second option is making the audience pay more attention. The third option is making the audience a sandwich. And the fourth option is making the audience cry. So just going through those options again, and great to see the votes coming through there. question is, what is the key to audience strategy? First option is making the audience central to everything you do. The second option is making the audience pay more attention. The third option is making the audience a sandwich. Kind of wished I was the audience right now. And the fourth one is making the audience cry. So I'll give you 3 more seconds.
A.
Making the audience central to everything you do. That is a great answer. Any other questions from the guys that can't see the panel? You shout them out.
Yeah, no,
A, making the audience central to everything you do. I think that's the final one for the people that can't see the poll. Okay, I'm going to end this poll now, and I'll show you guys the results. So top voted was not making the audience cry, not making the audience a sandwich. It was making the audience central to everything you do, which is absolutely correct. Okay, we have another one that I'm just going to launch now, and we'll rip through these pretty quick because we don't want to keep you guys over time. So why do we use analytics? The first question is, it helps us understand the audience and their needs. So the first option is, it helps us understand the audience and their needs. Second option is, it helps us bamboozle our colleagues. And the final is, we don't use analytics. So those questions, the question again is, why do we use analytics? The first option is, it helps us understand the audience and their needs. The second option is, it helps us bamboozle our colleagues. And the final option is, we don't. So we don't use analytics. I'll give you 3 seconds from the moment I stop talking, and then I'll end the poll.
A.
A is correct. We use analytics because it helps us understand the audience and their needs. Well done. Final one before we get into a bit more content. It's live now. What is the difference between data and insights? Data is numbers, insights are words. Data is information, insights are power. Data is information, and insight is information you can act on. I'll just go through those again. What is the difference between data and insights? Data is numbers, insights are words. Data is information, insights are power. Data is information, and insight is information you can act on. Give you 3 seconds from the moment I stop talking, and then I will end the poll.
C.
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 So C is data is information and insight is information you can act on. Let's see how we've gone. So we have 1 vote. Nick's voted for, as usual, total maverick, all of the above. I agree with that. I think that is 100% right. So you could have answered.
That was
I know. So the answer I was looking for is data is information and insight is information you can act on. There we go. Everyone did really well on that one. Okay. Now, let's keep rolling. So the next kind of focus area that we looked at was leadership and productivity. So in the leadership, and I'm just going to mute whoever is, if I can. Maybe there we go. Thank you for that. So in the leadership and productivity set, it's great to see that you're scribbling down notes there. That was great to hear. In this leadership and productivity set, we provided a basic framework for being a better leader online, which absolutely translates everywhere. We also showed you a suite of different apps to make your days a little bit more efficient. so that you have time for, important things like strategy and planning. So let's recap the key points from that area now. So at Google, we don't use KPIs, we use OKRs, and that stands for objectives and key results. It's a subtle difference, but it puts objectives or outcomes at the center of everything that you do when you're not thinking about the audience. It also makes everybody responsible for delivering on a goal, which basically removes the pressure from individuals on having to deliver that by themselves. And most of the times it's not an objective or even a key result. You're relying on other people to get that done anyway. So I think it's a fair way of doing it. It's also a clearer way to communicate. So everybody in the company knows what you're focused on, what every team is focused on, and how success will be measured is kind of the key part of that as well. So that's where the key results sit in. So how is success going to be measured? Next up, we talked about how productivity requires a little investment up front. You need to kind of go slow to go fast. So look, my advice on this is to have a play with the tools and work out which ones you're going to use. Set up daily meetings in your calendar, create a shared document that tracks the agenda and includes minutes for those regular meetings. Create chat rooms or message groups or channels in Slack, whatever apps you're using. Track and assign tasks using your own methodology. You can kind of make stuff up. When I got started in this stuff, I borrowed one from a really established methodology, which is called GTD, or Getting Things Done. There's a really good book of the same name called Getting Things Done by David Allen, and it basically outlines a very sort of simple methodology for tracking and assigning tasks, and certainly assigning tasks. We also spoke about the importance of being kind, and I'd have to say that relationships are more important than any task, and that's something that I've certainly learned in my time as well. And if you go back to the key objectives, often you find that task may not be as important in the overall goal as you might have thought anyway. So kind of getting off the track a little bit here, but it's worth kind of thinking about what sits beneath that challenge. So if somebody's not doing something that you've asked them to do, I always try and ask myself what I can do to fix it, and that kind of allows me to be kind as well. But often if you just look at what's happening underneath it, generally there's something that you could do that will, help to deliver that outcome and make it more successful. So it could be a process change. It could be that they're overworked and you need to take less off them, or whatever. There could be something that you can do to actually fix things. So be kind, and that includes yourself. Life is not perfect, and we can't expect it to be perfect either. The final thing in that all-encompassing session was that there really is an app for everything. I'm a firm believer in this. An easy way to find an efficiency is just to look at the tasks that take the most of your time and to see if it can be automated, or at least made a little bit easier and a little bit more efficient. I gave the example of automating guest communications at my Airbnb, which by using this app freed up about 90% of my time in that area. And that area was a massive time sucker for me. So just by realizing that I was doing these repetitive tasks that were just taking up so much of my time, I found an app that costs like, I don't know what it costs, $8 a month. And it's freed up 90% of my time in guest communication. So there is an app for everything. And guys, there's also a quiz for everything. So let's launch the next quiz.
Can I just make a comment about that, Neil? Sorry, hopefully this isn't a boring comment. Because when we first started talking about Workflowy and some of these other ones, I had a quick look into it, and I kind of firstly, I was like, I'm trying to find time to even look at this app and find out if it's appropriate. But then I sort of felt like, am I just spending too much time inputting information into this and constantly checking it? And then rather than just like either writing a note or just doing it, I'm wondering how much time did you invest into this $8 a month app and to put the information in, and how has it physically made you save all of that time?
Yeah, right. Look, that's such a great question, and I think if you do find that a app that you're trying or a new process that you're trying is actually taking up more time than the old one, then just go back to the old one, and certainly start to look for other ways of doing it, or maybe ask somebody else that's managed to use that effectively. I think that's what I'm talking about with a little bit of investment up front. Like, it will take you a bit of time to set these things up. Not a lot of time. They're generally pretty intuitive. But if we look at the app, which is called it's an American app. I just basically automated the things that I was repeating. So every time a guest books, they get a message from me on Airbnb that says, "Hey, thanks for booking. We'll send you out information, 7 days out, that tells you how to get here and all the great things to do along the way. If you have any questions, please let me know." We also have a review that is automated. I basically rate everybody 5 stars unless they trash the joint. So I could automate that process. I automate that email that I just mentioned, or the message that goes to them 7 days before. So that's 3 different things that I haven't had to do. And of those 3 things, it was basically most of my time. And then I now have common questions that get answered, like, can I bring a dog? I get that a lot. Can I bring a dirt bike? You can't bring a dirt bike or a dog that rides a dirt bike. So there's a template for that I just copy and paste. So that stuff you can kind of see quite easily. If I've got a guest there roughly every 3 days, a new guest, that can suddenly become a really big part of my job. So yeah, I would just kind of look at those things that are big time suckers and just sort of say, is there a way that I can find an app, or is there a way that I can outsource this? Like, maybe it's just finding a virtual assistant, or something like that. But certainly, if you've tried something and it's making life harder, I would just see if you're doing it wrong, or if there's a way that you could do it better. But if not, just drop it and try and find something else. That's a big part of it. Such a good question. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on to my amazing quiz?
Not so much a question, but I really like Workflowy. I've been using that, and I've found, apart from getting really overwhelmed by everything that I had to do, personal and work, once I got my head around that, it's been really good. Yeah.
And look, the first time I set up Workflowy, it was on a Saturday night. It wasn't during work time, and I think Edwina was away for the weekend, and I was just sitting there, with a pizza and, at that stage, iTunes. And I just sort of thought, I'm just going to set this all up. So I just grabbed my laptop and I just got into it, and it probably took me like 40 minutes or an hour to set everything up the first time, and then I was kind of done. And I've now been using that system for about 10 years, and it just gives me a great deal of confidence, kind of going into the day, or certainly going to bed as well at night time. It makes me sleep a little bit easier knowing that I've got a system that's capturing all the things that I need to do. So I don't have to try and trap everything in my brain. I have a system that's kind of remembering for me. So I'm glad you found that useful. Any other questions? Go ahead. No more questions? I feel like an auctioneer. 3, 2, 1, sold. All right. So we have a quick quiz question now, just launched. I'll only give you a short amount of time for this one because I feel like you guys will know it. What does OKR stand for? OKR stands for Objective and Key Results, or Objectives and Key Revenue. What does OKR stand for? Objective and Key Results, or Objective and Key Revenue?
A.
A. Thank you. We've got 2 other votes out there.
A.
A. Thanks, Jeff.
A.
Another one. A. A. All right. I'll give you 3 more seconds. I think pretty much everyone's voted. We may have 1 or 2 outstanding. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. You should be able to see the results for those that are able to see the poll. So what does OKR stand for? OKR stands for Objective and Key Results. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And look, it did take, honestly, a little bit of time for me to get my head around that when I first started working with Nick, 10 months ago. We haven't done this at any other workplaces that I've worked at, but certainly once you do get your head around it, it's it's a pretty powerful way of thinking about things. So the next question.
May I just interject? I know we have limited time, so I just wanted to ask a quick question. Again, this kind of goes against the grain of what I was used to when I worked inside News Corp, which is the idea of any kind of performance review. If anyone ever said to me that they wanted to talk about my performance, you knew it was a bad conversation, that they were just the idea of being performance managed was just never good. Has this idea of kind of constant feedback around performance and setting objectives and trying to sort of be goal oriented and work, does anybody, just like show of hands, does anybody do any of that? I mean, I know it's small teams generally speaking, but in a sense I find it very helpful, and I continue to get stressed out by it every time I am up for a performance review. I just sort of think I'm about to be tapped on the shoulder and they're going to realize that I am a fraud and I have to leave. But like, does anybody have that kind of feedback loop conversation with your bosses or the people who report to you? Yeah, interesting. Lauren, I see is that a yes?
We have a little bit to do with it, Nick. So it's sort of a bit of a moving feast at times with regards to regular goals and responding to certain things that pop up from time to time. So and that's both in my situation, but also with the staff that work with me in the team. So
yeah.
So that may be personal. It might be team objective sort of things, that the projects that we've got. That we're collectively sort of working on, and we've probably had a fair few staff turnovers. Unfortunately, I've got 2 going and 3 going at the moment, sort of thing, across our different branches. So that always usually throws a bit of a spanner in the works in terms of some of these sort of productivity or project sort of things. You sort of take 1 step forward and then you lose somebody. You take a couple of steps back. So we don't always get there with what we set, so that can be a bit counterproductive at times. Yeah, it's a bit of a moving feast. So
you always have to balance it. Sorry, Lauren, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I've worked my microphone out now. I was going to say, so prior to working with the ABC, I worked for maybe 5 different regional newspapers, and I'd never had a performance review ever. So then when the ABC, they're so big on feedback, like I was chief of staff at ABC Mildura, and one day they flew me down to Melbourne to attend a 1-day workshop about how to give feedback effectively. So look, as much as it's probably overkill with them, I have taken that with me a little bit into this job now that I'm managing a paper, particularly with my journos, because they're young. I try to schedule in usually every 3 months. 3 months we have a one-on-one session. Maybe it goes for an hour or so, where we just go through. Yeah.
It probably felt at the time like massive overkill to fly you down to Melbourne to learn how to give feedback. Like how hard can it be? But actually learning to give constructive feedback that actually people can work with and build on is it's a tough skill. And look, honestly, I mean, the toughest thing we ever tried to do was figure out how to build in objectives or KPIs into a newsroom, into a journalist's work. And it's like when somebody's filing stories, you can't do it on the number of stories they file, or like the number of awards they might win or something like that. Like how do you measure somebody's value as a journalist when their job is to produce stories? And I don't know that anyone's actually really cracked that yet, but I definitely am a fan. I think it's a really good idea to start thinking about how to build in KPIs or OKRs, whatever you want to call them, into your sort of own development, whether it's conversation with your boss or not, but you're thinking about what goals you set yourselves and how you measure yourself against that. Because measuring success is always a good way of understanding whether or not you're achieving what you want to achieve. And yeah, you're right, Jeff, if you fail, then it can obviously impact team morale or your own sense of performance. So you've got to calibrate them into something that you think is achievable, but ideally a bit of a stretch beyond what you think you could do in a canter. So, it's always got to be a bit hard, but there's nothing more rewarding than sort of looking back and going, well, I set 3 really strong KPIs or OKRs in the past year and we managed to get them all. And just that alone can sometimes be incredibly rewarding and help other people if you're guiding other people to help stretch them and get them to feel a sense of fulfillment. And in the unfortunate event that somebody isn't performing very well, you can also point to that and say, well, look, my job isn't to point to a failing. It's more about understanding why you aren't achieving that and helping you to get to a point where you can. But again, culturally, newsrooms are just not a place where KPIs are a happy place. It's very, very difficult to get people over the line with that. Anyway, thanks for the feedback. That was really interesting.
No worries. Yeah, and look, not at all. And just before I left Storeful, I sat down with every member of my team and basically captured their career path. So like, where do you want to go in Storeful, or where do you want to go outside of Storeful? Like, what does your career path look like? And I sat down with a member of my staff who had been part of the News Corp company more broadly for 5 years at this point in time, and I sat down with her and I said, look, I just really want to talk about your career path. And she just started crying. And I was like, you're not in trouble. There's nothing wrong here. And she's like, no one's ever asked me that before. So it can be a really kind of powerful thing as an employee as well. It just sort of shows that, you care and that they're valued. And I think those things are really important. There is a question, a quiz question that I have thrown live. The question is, good leaders focus on the audience, managing their staff, managing up, objectives, not tasks. Good leaders focus on, number 1, the audience, number 2, managing their staff, number 3, managing up. Nick, there is no all of the above, by the way. And number 4 is objectives, not tasks. Let's end the poll. What say you, people with voice and no poll? Jeff, what do you think that one is?
There's a couple I'd actually pick. We said not all of the above, but in terms of, if we're talking specifically around leaders, I'd sort of say managing staff, then I'd take it more of a personal sort of thing than an internal more than an external aspect about dealing with their audience. So I'd sort of be leaning towards managing staff.
Managing staff, good one. What else do we have out there?
Thanks for dropping in.
Yeah, I'm thinking B2, if that's specific, but it is it crosses over a few.
Yeah, managing their staff. Anyone? I think we've got one more out there in the wild before we.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was objectives rather over tasks.
Objectives, not tasks. So looking at the online poll, I'm just going to make those results live to everybody. We had 3 votes for objectives, not tasks. No votes for anything else. Answer I was looking for was objectives, not tasks. But you could, reasonably good managers do all those things. But the answer I was looking for was objectives, not tasks. Beautiful. One final one, and this will take us to time. We do have more work to do. So if you can stick around for another 10 or even 15 minutes, we'd really appreciate it. But if you do need to go after this quiz, this will be time for you. Quiz is live now. The question is, there really is an app for everything, true or false? I think hopefully everybody has got my non too subtle line on this. There really is an app for everything, true or false? Just going to end the poll. True.
Yeah, true.
Everybody else?
True.
True. True. Yeah, there definitely is an app for everything. True. And if there's not an app for everything, create the app because you can make some money. So that's 5 o'clock. We do have about 10 or 15 minutes more to go. If you can stay, please do. We're going to go through revenue now, which is obviously incredibly important. And I do want to get to that brief discussion at the end about what's been most important for you, because that's certainly good feedback for us. So in terms of revenue,
I'm going to sign off as well. Unfortunately, guys, I've got a 5 p.m. local time, so I will jump off. But great to see you all as ever, and have a great week. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Anybody else that needs to go, please feel free to just dive out, and we'll get the video to you as well as the slides. So in terms of revenue, this is the final core area that we've looked at across the last couple of months. We had a discussion about the various business models that you're using and that are available to you right now, from subscription to membership to ad-supported models, even paid newsletters kind of jumped in there. We had Archie Lingham join us. Archie's obviously a member of the Google team, but she has a very unique perspective when it comes to making money online with news. She was previously at Huffington Post and led all of their efforts in this area. So it's great to have her join us. Look, this session was a bit more interactive than others, and was kind of largely led by you guys and the discussion. But there were a couple of key points that I wanted to touch on before we get into that group discussion. That's probably a good hint for you to write down one thing that has been transformative for you throughout the program, because we are going to get into that discussion in a sec. So as I mentioned, we discussed various different business models that are being considered or used by you guys right now. And we kind of learnt through that discussion that there is no one-size-fits-all policy when it comes to business models for news. We also showed you that sizing exercise that allows you to quickly see the revenue opportunities based on the size of your digital audience. I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you that slide very quickly now, because I think it's a really helpful tool. So there it is. I'll send this around again so that you can use this to line it up and see what sort of options are available to you. There are some revenue streams that aren't mentioned on this that I did call out at the time. Things like events or paid obituaries is something that's a bit creative, a bit creepy, that's being used in the US in particular. Merchandise is something that we're seeing a little bit of here. So that's certainly, there are different revenue streams that aren't captured by this, but this is just a really helpful sizing tool. So you can very quickly see if I've got 50,000 or less monthly impressions, which is basically page views, sponsorship will work, direct sold to local customers. So putting ads from butchers and bakers and candlestick makers in your area on your website will work, as well as non-standard formats will work as well. So let's just go back to here. So finally, we had a bit of a Q&A around what stuff might work for you, and I did put you guys in touch with Archie on email. So just remember that you do have direct access to Archie. She's there. She's very accessible. I'm catching up with her for lunch tomorrow, so she's around. She's so good at this stuff. So if you do have questions, do ask her. Do ask if you can have a meeting with her and just talk through what your options might be. She is very, very much there. we also, if I can find it, I just wanted to quickly show you this slide again, which was around what ad platforms do you need, or what ad platforms will work for you based on the makeup of your sales team. So if you have no sales team and you want Google to do all the work for you, it's Google AdSense. That's the product that will do that for you. If you have advertisers and you want to be able to serve their ads, as well as have a little bit of automation as well, to take up maybe some extra, some extra space that you have, or extra inventory that you have, unsold inventory, you can use Google AdSense as a couplet with Google Ad Manager. So that's all I really wanted to show you guys very quickly on revenue, as we are starting to butt up, and we're well over time, let's be honest, 5 minutes over, but not too much longer to go. So quickly, back to our all-important quiz. It's going live right now. So the question is, what business models work for a site with less than 50,000 monthly impressions or visits? I literally just gave you a bit of a sneak peek at that a few seconds ago. So what business models work for a site with less than 50,000 monthly impressions? Sponsorships, direct sold to local customers. Just heard a squawk in the background, which is my daughter getting ready for her meal. Non-standard formats, or the final one is all of the above. It's a pretty kind of meaty question, so I'll read it out again. What business models work for a site with less than 50,000 monthly impressions or visits, as we're probably used to thinking about them? Sponsorship is one. Direct sold to local customers is another. Non-standard formats. And then the final one is all of the above. I'll give you 5 seconds. We've only got one vote in on the online poll. There you go. I love this. It's like sale of the century. Everybody's kind of hitting the buzzards. D, all of the above. Let me just show you the results to that one and end that poll. So D is the correct answer, all of the above. So if you have a website that has less than 50,000 monthly visits or impressions, however you want to cut it up, sponsorships, direct sold to local customers, so selling ads straight to them, non-standard formats like native advertising or advertorials, as we call them in the paper, they'll all work. All that stuff is a good option for you. All right, I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to skip to the final bit where we're just going to have a bit of a chat. That question is live now. The question is, I must use Google Ad products if I want to do online ads. And the options are true. It's our first true or false or false. So the question is, I must use Google Ad products. This sounds like a mantra. If I want to do online ads, true or false?
False.
False.
Two falses. Two falses. My daughter Molly's banging on the door.
False.
I think she's a false too.
Yeah, false.
4 false, 5 false, and we've got 1 vote on the digital platform here. I'm going to end that poll, and they've said false as well. So you do not have to use Google Ad products if you want to do online ads. You can absolutely sell them yourself and do that yourself. So yeah, that is very, very good. So guys, I hope you found that useful. That is the first time that I've used that quiz feature in Google Meet. So it was a bit fiddly, but hopefully you found that valuable, and you found the training valuable over the last couple of months. This is the first time we've kind of done a leadership program like this, so we are very, very keen to understand how you found it and whether you found bits helpful or not. But what I just really wanted you guys to think about today, as we sort of wrap up the kind of the knowledge component, I guess, before we move into those 2 sessions with the other Googlers, is what has been the most transformative part of the program for you? So if anybody wants to jump in, I'd be really happy to hear what you found most useful. from this last couple of months.
Neil, I'll start. I missed some sessions, but I did catch one or two on after the show, so to speak. I guess what the whole Google experience gave to me was more confidence in doing so much more. And you know, I've even got my own YouTube channel. That's not directly a result of Google, but it gave me the confidence to do things that I haven't done before. And I think the greatest part of this is reiterating the point about success grows from how well we serve our readers and our audience. I mean, that is, I've been doing sports reporting, and the appreciation of the reporter that does sport is amazing, because the more you love the people in the sporting fraternity, the more they love you and your paper. So I guess it's just given me confidence.
Oh, mate, that's so wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, hopefully you've discovered that it's not some sort of weird science. Yeah, and it's not super difficult. Yeah, it's just kind of like, it is all easy, but it's just a matter of making a start and asking questions, and you know, and that's about it. So, oh mate, I'm so thrilled to hear that. Anything else? Does anybody else want to contribute?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think the confidence to actually step out of your comfort zone and do something that you haven't done in the past has been really good. And just look at the whole online sector as something different. So look at it, sort of start to look at it as the online first and then the paper. I mean, we're paper first, but actually look at the concept of, you know, our subscribers or behind that paywall getting news before it actually comes out in the paper.
Yeah, and I think it's great to hear, and it's very it is, you do have to think about digital a little bit differently. I think often you know, we build a website to supplement what we're doing in print, and often we just put up whatever we've run in the paper, and we don't really necessarily think about the format that it's in and the kind of audience that's there, and even look at the audience statistics and data, and you know, get an understanding of whether they might want something a little bit different. So yeah, if that's what you've got out of this, that's certainly more than worth my time. So I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? What's been useful for you?
I think there you go. I was going to say, for me, it's probably just really opens up, I said, for those that have sort of, we're just sort of delving into, again, not digital first per se, but certainly with the paywalls and all this. I mean, some of the statistics and some of the material that you've got at your that you've got available that you've shared with us, I mean, reinforces, I suppose, the need to and the importance of digital. We can get a bit complacent, I think, at times, just with regards to our print, because we are still very much print orientated, but you know, we're moving towards that. We see that the numbers reinforce the need for us to be more conscious and to move that way in terms of the business. And I suppose from my point of view, it creates a bit of a challenge in terms of trying to juggle those resources and the need to juggle some resources back into that digital concept, and again, not taking for granted that we just have the websites there, that we've actually got to manage and service them a little bit more than just being a secondary product for our papers. And you know, in terms of how we do that, there's a number of things we've got to continue to try, but the fact that it's a journey that sharing with colleagues here that everyone seems to be on, and that we're, you know, while we're still fairly, you know, there's no end to it. We're pretty just starting our journey, I suppose, in many respects, and many others are in the same regard. So, there's some big opportunities and big challenges there ahead of us, I think, in terms of what we've got to be able to do. And for me, it's again that realisation of just trying to find some of those resources, but also what we need to put back into our teams to be able to do that. So,
absolutely. Yeah, mate, that's so good. It's so great to hear. And I think one of the key things as well about this program is you've now got a little group, you've got a little community that you can kind of bounce ideas off, or kind of run things by or seek advice from, as well as myself and Nick and Rob and the rest of the VCPA gang. You've got a little group that are kind of mostly going through the same sorts of challenges and trying to answer the same sorts of questions that you'll be trying to answer on a day-to-day basis. So what I might do is, this was suggested to me at the start, so I will do this, and I have created the document, but if you guys are happy for me to share your details, I've got a little document that has emails and mobile phone numbers of all of you guys. If you don't want to share, that you're more than, just send me a note, and I won't do that. Certainly won't do it over the next 24 hours anyway, but if you're happy, I'll share that with you so that you guys can get in touch with each other directly. Yeah, and we can leave mobile phones out if that's something that's a concern to people, but I think it'd be helpful for you guys to be able to call each other or email each other if you have a question. Jeff, thank you, mate. That's so good to hear. Does anybody else have anything they want to share?
I was just going to say the same, pretty much the same as everyone else has said. Just chatting with people, swapping stories about, finding out that we're all experiencing very similar things as we launch ourselves into the digital age, and confidence too, because sometimes you can tend to feel a bit like you're taking stabs in the dark a bit. There's no actual solid roadmap for us to follow necessarily. So hearing others saying, yes, we share everything on Facebook behind the paywall, and yes, we get a lot of flack from people for that initially, then they adjust, all those sorts of things give you the confidence to go ahead anyway, because it'll come good. And I'm finding the stats really, really interesting and useful too, like Jeff was saying. But yeah, it's definitely good overall to be able to swap stories with everybody, because ultimately, like you were saying, Neil, we are going through it very similarly. Yeah,
100%. And I think sometimes that's kind of all you need to hear is that you kind of, you're not an island, and you're not alone in the sorts of things that you're trying to work through. So sometimes just working out that there are other people out there that are coming to the same sorts of hurdles that you are is helpful. And everybody is. I went to this when I was head of social media. I went to this social media summit where there was like all of these people from all around the world, like New York Times, Reuters, Huffington Post at that point, a bunch of others, and everybody had the same problems. Everybody. So it was just really heartening for me to come home and go, okay, well, I'm not a fool. I've just, I'm just working through the same stuff that everybody else is working through. So that's cool. Anybody else want to say anything before I wrap things up?
I was just going to say, I think it's been really good to have just to set aside an hour or two to focus on digital, because it can be really easy to not look at the big picture stuff. And yeah, I think obviously learning off what other people are doing and hearing other viewpoints on how they're going about things has been really helpful as well. So thanks, everyone.
Cool. And we've also done this session a bit asked about, if I could be so crude. Normally we would get you guys together at the start so you can kind of meet each other in person, and you can kind of, build a relationship that way. But we've sort of had to do this all virtually because of COVID, and then we're going to get you all together at the end, which is not at all how we'd intended to do this. So I just wanted to really just thank you guys for committing to this, because it is, you know, it is big commitment when you've got really big jobs and families and all this other stuff going on, and you've got to spend an hour each fortnight listening to me rabbit on in a video with, you know, a bunch of other people. So yeah, I just want to thank you for your commitment and for sort of, you know, for listening to us and sort of being there, you know, over the last couple of months. So before I recede into the darkness, it is getting quite dark in this room here, so I probably, you won't.
My turn.
Oh, right, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, again, just the audience-led strategy, absolute standout. I don't even have my head around analytics. I'm struggling to even get on analytics. So I am very, very green on that. So I understand I need to put some time aside and really look into that. The tools we have learned, I have already found extremely helpful with the Google Advanced Search and the reverse image sort of kind of things. And also, you know, when you launch into looking for things like that, you find all these other things. But I found Miguel's presentation on that to be fantastic. Like everyone else is saying, the ideas and suggestions that we're all sharing have been enlightening because we're all doing exactly the same. We're all in the same business, maybe at different levels and different audiences. But I've just picked up so many great things like running classifieds on your Facebook page, or I loved someone suggested their private Facebook group that they run, and adding that sort of premium content for subscribers and giving them that added benefits for things like that. I've got a list of things that I want to act on and share with the rest of our staff here after I have the time to sort of like consolidate all these notes into something that makes kind of sense. The access to the expertise from all of you guys, and especially Neil and Nick, and being able to reach out to you all, and I would really appreciate all of those contacts, and you know, people like Archie and everything. I'm not doing anything right now, but I intend to sort of like work on this over time. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that I'm really interested in what everyone else is doing in print to drive their digital subscriptions. And I'm kind of keen on, if everyone's into it, maybe sending some examples maybe to Neil, who could send them on to everyone else, because it's something that we have to continually have in the paper to continually remind people to you know, to get on digital and subscribe on digital, but we always need to keep that content fresh. And sometimes you can run out of ideas and you don't want to be running the same thing all the time because it gets boring. And if everyone was into sort of sharing that sort of stuff, I'd appreciate it and happy to do so. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, what we might do is I'll send the video around after this with the slides and all of that sort of stuff, and maybe people can just reply all with a couple of examples if that's not going to flood people's inboxes. The other option, I could create a Google Drive that you guys could add photos to, if you're comfortable doing that. Whatever you want to do. What would people prefer? Just to reply to the email or Google Drive?
Email's fine with me.
Yeah.
Email's easy.
Yeah, email.
Awesome. Yeah. How good is email?
Fine with Eva.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Is there anybody else before I kind of let you guys go to dinner and whatever else is on the schedule? No. Okay. Beautiful. Guys, thank you. I really hope that was useful. I just wanted to take a pause as we start to head towards the end of the program and just, you know, recap on some stuff. Next up we have our people and cultural team. So the big cheese in Google HR across Asia Pacific is going to spend an hour with you guys talking about Google's culture. We're also then going to be joined by the partner innovation team for the final session, which will be pretty amazing. So they're going to talk about how Google innovates. And there was a survey came out last week, which listed Google as one of the most innovative companies in the world, and has been for about 15 or 20 years now. So really great opportunity for you guys to kind of ask some great questions of both of those two groups. With that, I will recede into the darkness of this room as the light fades here. And
thank you, Neil. Thanks.
Thank
such
you,
a
Neil.
pleasure, mate. Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.